Dear students, as in the last part of my previous lecture, I mentioned the term discourse, and especially theories of colonial discourses have been influential in the development of post-colonial literature. Now, we have already talked about definition of the term colonialism, but still after 16th century especially, this colonialism was a kind of enterprise that was driven by capitalism. And I think, needless to mention, the way it started with the purpose of profit in business, in trade, and with the same goal, how colonies were forcibly established by the colonizers in another's land. So we all know this particular definition of colonialism. But when we look at colonialism as process of subjugation, as process of violence, here it becomes important to tell that how this process of subjugation and process of violence is related with process of discourse. And in today's lecture, we will try to understand what is called colonial discourse. But before understanding colonial discourse, it is important to have knowledge of discourse, and credit goes to Michel Foucault, an intellect from 20th century who is a French scholar, historian, thinker, philosopher, and especially post-structuralist thinker. And most important thing to mention here that Edward Said has employed this discourse analysis of Foucault in his discourse of Orientalism. So let me tell you that Orientalism is a revisionist book, is a work that is called as revisionist text. And why it is so? Because he revises the entire discourse available to us from the perspective or from the angle of the colonized, not from the angle of the colonizer. Otherwise, we all know that how Orientalism or Orients were constructed from the viewpoint of the Occidents. That means we are fantasy, we are imagination, we are actually product of that mindset of the Occidental people. But to establish this particular kind of analysis, Said has made use of the Foucault's analysis of discourse. So first of all, we will try to understand what is called discourse. So if you look at the simple meaning of the word discourse, discourse that means set of meaningful statements, and that can be oral and written both on any given topic. So whenever we come across something meaningful, right, either it is in picture form or in written form or in oral form, it is called discourse on any particular topic, right? Now, when we move ahead and we look at the insight that is inculcated, that is given by Foucault on this particular term discourse, what is this? And to understand that very thing, we have to indulge in the process of understanding of discourse, right? That means we will deal with the certain points, right? So, Foucault says that what happens that there are certain deep-seated structures, certain deep-seated regulations which produce our discourses, that means which create discourses and which control discourses. So most important thing for Foucault is to know and understand the production of the meaningful statements by the rules and controlling by the those forces which produce and control these meaningful statements. So, and Foucault at the same time, he says that time to time, that means historically in the same society, nature and degree of this control and regulation varies. So let me tell you that from society to society, any such discourse, nature and degree may vary, and at the same time, in the same society, in different time periods, right, the nature and degree of that discourse may differ to each other. Okay. So here the stand of the Foucault is that how entire human civilization is a kind of discursive practice, and this discursive practice is a declaration by the certain regulating agencies of our society. Now, to make it clear or to make it simple, whenever we look at something, we talk about something meaningful, two things are existing there always. First is what? The topic about which the discourse is going on. And second thing, that in this process of discourse on that particular topic, knowledge is produced through the system of language, and we know that the discourse takes place through language. So what are the 2 points? That the topic is a construction. How topic gets constructed? It is constructed through discourse. Second most important point is what? That in this process of knowing, in this process of understanding this particular topic, knowledge is produced. So topic is constructed through discourse and knowledge is also produced through discourse. Now when Foucault tries to sum up or he tries to make it more clear, he says that entire human practices, and mind it that when we are talking about human practices, definitely those practices which are given sanction by society. I mean to say that the deviant human behavior cannot be part of the social practices. Mad people, they are not allowed as the meaningful or essential part of the civilization and society, right? So all those social practices, they entail one or another meaning. In this way, entire human practices can be declared as discursive practice. Discursive, that is the plural of the discourse, right? And discourse, that means the meaningful set of statements, set of meaningful statements. Now when Foucault approaches this construction of topic and the production of knowledge, definitely here he wants to target the social configuration. He says that the topic is a construction and no such statement which is not holding meaning is not the part of discourse. That means only meaningful statements are going to be part of discourse. So certain things which are actually prohibited, which are concealed, which are restricted, which are not allowed to be the part of discourse, what are they? And how it is determined? It is always determined by the society. So meaning to say that what we consider as subject, actually it is object configured by the society, and society is handled by the certain regulating agencies, and these regulating agencies are nobody else but the institutions, and these institutions are controlled by the powerful people, right? So when we practice something in a very orderly way, or we consider that it is an orderly practice, behind this practice many such institutions are working, either you realize or not. For example, behind an orderly practice there is medical field, doctor, clergyman, social institutes, moral forces, philosophers, thinkers. So in very many ways our practices are controlled by these invisible discourses, by these invisible structures. So whenever we are talking about discourse, Foucault says that one physical structure is available and many invisible structures are available which keep control over our physical structure. For example, practice of sexuality. Like we think that as Foucault says that if somebody thinks that someone is hetero and it is the choice of that person, then no. Society allows in normal way to be hetero, then most of the people are hetero. However, anomaly is here, and I don't want to discuss here over sexuality, but this is just one of the examples I quoted, that the practice of sexuality, that means the heterosexuals, they are taken as the normal or orderly practice. It is, as per Foucault, allowed by society, and if you go beyond this kind of practice of sexuality, then you become odd, or you are called as deviant, practitioner of deviant human behavior. So Foucault says that discourse takes place through various means, right? And these various means sometimes invisible, but we are always under control of the powerful institutions. Now moving ahead, and to be more simple in my explanation of this term discourse, let me tell you that there are certain factors, certain limiting forces about which Foucault talks in his works like Archaeology of Knowledge, orders of discourse. In history of sexuality also you may say that he talks about discourse and power. And his most important work, that is Madness and Civilization, right? So if you look at these four seminal works of the Foucault, you will understand that what are those limiting factors and limiting forces the moment he applies them in the field of history, in the field of sexuality, and in the field of colonial discourses, right? So first and foremost, the first factor is that is called taboo. Now, in any society, there are certain practices which are prohibited or which are tabooed, right? For example, the practice of sexuality, as I just gave you example, right? Second, that when you talk about sexual violence, or you talk about your sexual desire, or you talk about rape, so many such things, many such categories in the field of sex and sexuality, it is prohibited in any society, or you may say in the certain areas, right? But what happened that right now you may talk about sexual violence or rape cases in general if you are objectively talking about that topic. But it is very difficult to talk about marital rape, if you are part of that family. It is very difficult to talk about rape from this structured society and family. That means if you are part of that, meaning to say that still it is very difficult to talk about certain things which are tabooed, and there are layers. And as I mentioned that historically these taboos are changing, right? The degree of the taboo subject and nature of the taboo subjects vary from society to society, and in the same society, from history wise, from period wise, it varies to each other. For example, earlier we were not allowed to talk about so frequently sexuality. Now we are talking, but as I told you that you can talk about violence, sexual violence and rape, but you are not so frequent in your talk in terms of marital rape. So this is the difference of the history. Like earlier you were not at all allowed to talk about this kind of sexual violence, but now you are allowed to talk with certain kind of boundary. So Foucault says that with the time changes takes place, or the degree of the tabooed subject or nature of that tabooed subject may vary, but it persists in one or another form. This is most remarkable or important point that is mentioned by Foucault. And many times, theoretically, these discourses are available on the taboo subjects, but practically it is not allowed. Second point which limits our discourses as per Foucault, it is madness oblique sanity he talks about. Now, as we saw the definition of the term discourse, we have already understood that those statements are part of discourse which contribute in making meaning or which give us some sense. That means the mad person or madness, the statements which come or which fall into the category of madness, they do not contribute in making meaning. It means whatever is stated by mad person, it can never create discourse. Now let me point out that how strategically madness is a category that is declared by the institutions or by those powerful people who were regulating the structures of society, right? Just as you look at the set of the colonizers and colonized, as Said himself mentioned in his work Orientalism, that how we are called as uncivilized people. We do not know the rules of road. We are walking like buffaloes. We are walking like animals. We do not have that sense, civic sense, that is called as civic sense. So, when you go through the essay that is called Madness and Civilization of Foucault, he points out that how sometimes the boundary is blurring in the madness and in the notion of civilization. Means civilized concept of civilization, how it can be easily turned into the notion of madness. And the moment your activities, your practices and your gesture and postures, it is going to be described under madness, that means you are going to lose this identity of civilized being, right? So the moment you are turned from civilized to mad, from a civilized person to a mad person, at that very moment you lose this power of discourse. You can never create discourse. So another, again I repeat here that this definition of madness is going to vary from time to time. Maybe that in our society what we consider as normal gesture, that maybe in another society may fall into the category of madness. But the thing is that whatever the social structure, if somebody falls into that category of madness, is not allowed to have discourse. Now the third most important point which Foucault talks, which limits our discourses, it is called as institutional ratification. Now whenever you look at something as meaningful or something as truth or something that is called as knowledge, that it is delivering knowledge or knowledge is here, it means that there is ratification of the established institutions. For example, if you go back and you look at the analysis that either sun revolves around earth or earth revolves around sun. So earlier, sun revolves around earth, this was given sanction, but now it is not validated. Now this idea is not validated. So how it was taken at a time, truth. The moment there was ratification, the moment there was sanction of one institution by the established institution that no, this is the truth and this is the only fact regarding these particular science. So we took it as the form of knowledge, right? So here Foucault famous pronouncement through this institutional ratification that knowledge is governed by the powered institution, or knowledge is produced, knowledge is handled by these institutions only, and these institutions are powered institution. So here it becomes important to tell you the relationship between knowledge and power. Power is knowledge or knowledge is power. In fact, here Foucault tells us, or Foucault wants to emphasize that always power is knowledge, because the one who is in power, the one who is capable, the one who is in the role of practicing its cruel hands over you may define what is wrong and what is right and what is truth and what is not truth. So knowledge was handled, knowledge was produced as per the desire of these institutions, right? Here it becomes important once again to highlight the Foucault's discourse analysis, that how different insight he has given here. The different insight is what? The moment you do discourse over the available discourses, slowly and gradually you enter in this process of, declaring that how this notion of discourse was socially configured, or it was a social construction, and this is not the whole truth. That means the notion of discourse of Foucault is itself a kind of attack over the discourse, right? So the way he gives example in his history of sexuality, that how in the 18th century the practice of sex, it was a hidden act, and outside the bedroom if it was performed, it was a criminal act. But in the 19th century, prohibition, concealment and many such practices were going on. Still the repressive hypothesis works and incitement to discourse takes place, and this is how those who were hidden and concealed, they come on surface. And after 19th century, slowly and gradually, now sexuality has become a key term for the identity, that is he homosexual or is she homosexual or heterosexual. So earlier, the sexuality, that was a taboo subject, it was not talked about, and now people are talking that same sexuality as a key term to define identity. So this is what Foucault idea, that how through this notion of discourse you may enter into this multiplicity of discourse, and by entering into multiplicity of discourse you may break that monopoly, okay? And at the same time the concept of power which Foucault has associated with the discourse, that the discourse takes place with the power structure, and this power structure is not monolithic in nature and it is not jurido-discursive model. Rather, this power is lacking any physical force, intimidation, no physical power is there. There is no any stick, physical force is used, but how the violence is perpetuated through this system of power? It is through the means of mental colonization. It is through the means of multiplicity of discourse, and that multiplicity of discourse tells us that look, these are your drawbacks and these are your faults. But Foucault alters that same concept and he says that once from the angle of the the sufferer, from the angle of the one who is victim of this discourse, once this discourse will be initiated, there will be reversal of deflation. Okay, so this is how Foucault's concept of discourse is known. And let me tell you the best example from the colonial discourse analysis, that how this colonial discourse takes place actually. We all know about the Indian Education Act. It was established on the basis of statements which Macaulay gave in the minutes of 1835. Okay, the year 1835, the statements which are given by Macaulay, it was taken at a time by Indian society, by India, as the Educational Act. But look at the biased statement, what he has stated there. He writes that entire knowledge system of India or entire literature of India and Arab, it can be called inferior in front of the single self of the European library. Now you look at this statement that the whole Indian literature, Arabian literature, Persian literature, or any literature available written in any language of the Middle East countries, they can be declared inferior or they cannot exist in front of the single self of the any library of Europe. Now such a kind of extremist statement and biased statement regarding Indian system of knowledge given by Macaulay, it was accepted by society because he was part and parcel of that institution which was in power. Institutional ratification, and it was taken as truth. Though the fact is what, Macaulay was not having knowledge of any of these languages, any Indian language or languages spoken in Middle East countries, right? So this is how discourse takes place. That means the powerful person, how they impose their analysis, their understanding over the common people, the one who is under control. So obviously they were colonizer and we were colonized. So they made us feel low. So Foucault's insight is most important for altering the entire Western discourse from the perspective of the Eastern people. So Sai's Orientalism actually deals with this relation of knowledge and power. And let me tell you here 4 most important points which comes out of the Foucault's discourse analysis. First one is called as a statement that gives us knowledge. Second is rule. Rule tells us what is sayable and what is thinkable, that is only allowed. Third one is subject, which is a construction. As I told you that whenever any talk is going on, topic is automatically constructed. Topic is a construction through the system of language. But look, when this subject is constructed from the position of an institution, and that institution looks at you objectively, then in place of subject they create object, right? And fourth point is knowledge. And knowledge reveals that in this process of decoding of the meaningful statements, there is a truth. And let me tell you that the knowledge produces truth. As per Foucault, knowledge produces truth. And this truth is the matter of historical moment. Now, the truth which Macaulay revealed regarding Indian education system or the truth that he gave regarding Indian philosophy and thought or entire Eastern society, it is what? It is matter of historical moment. Matter of historical moment, that means it is a social construction. It was just a construction, not the whole truth. We were made to look so, we were made to appear so, we were made to accept ourselves as inferior. Our victimization, we had internalized, we were compelled to do that. And as I told you that Foucault says that power is never practiced physically. So these people, they have also not practiced every time physical power. Rather, various means they adopted of disseminating this subjugation. And this is how culture was the best means of our subjugation. Like the imposition of their culture with a kind of strategy so that we cannot realize that we are getting victimized or we are going away from our culture and we are taking their culture as part and parcel of our lifestyle. So this particular thing is very important to understand entire Said's discourse, as in 1978 in his book Orientalism, Said deals with this relationship of knowledge and power, and he tries to invert the entire discourse from the perspective of the Orients, and this is how discourse analysis is adopted as the key tool by Said in his book Orientalism to explore, to expose, to bring into notice the entire system of subjugation of the Occidentals, right? So discourse is what? Discourse, that means to identify the dominant discourses, and after identifying dominant discourses, one has to declare that how all the realities were social construction by these dominant discourses. And once you have identified, you have to analyze these discourses, and there is always difference between three things, that is called description, analysis and interpretation. So you have to do analysis, not description and interpretation. And if I have to make use of mathematical metaphor here, then analysis, that means you are indulged in the process of adding and subtraction, right? Addition and subtraction. And if you are doing description, that means you are giving actual data, right? Actual, what is in actual described it is. And when you are doing interpretation, that means you are indulged into calculating the result. So you have to do discourse analysis of the entire colonial power. That means you are going to prepare a kind of framework, and through this framework you will ask that why, how and when these discourses were prepared by the colonizers, what was the purpose and why we were made to appear so, which Said has done by preparing his discourse analysis in the form of Orientalism. So I hope that this concept of discourse is clear to you. In case of any confusion, you may ask. In my next video, I will come directly with Edward Said's notion of Orientalism, or I will deal with the crisis in Orientalism. Thank you.